Freedom and Women, Islam, Saudi and the West. Bismillah, in the name of Allah. Before focusing on freedom of women in different contexts of the world today, we need to understand freedom and free will. Freedom. The easiest way to imagine freedom is to juxtapose it with its opposite, imprisoned. Imagine a bird in a cage as opposed to a bird flying free. So a man in prison is considered caged, while the man outside is considered free. However, freedom is relative according to one's context. For example, these Muslim men who are caged in Myanmar are free to breathe as their heads are above water. Another man in an Australian prison may have more freedom whereby he can walk around his cell, and yet another prisoner may have extra freedom to work or study. The freedom which each individual has is restricted by his situation. And even though a person may not be imprisoned, their freedom still varies according to their context. For example, in Australia, it is illegal to drive without a seatbelt. It is illegal to start a business without government approval or to build a house without a permit. Furthermore, while a man may be free in his society, his freedom only extends as far as it does not harm anyone or impose on any other person's freedom. For example, he is free to walk, but not on someone else's property. He is free to engage in sexual relations, but only with given consent, and only with those above a certain age limit. He may not rape or commit pedophilic acts. So although a person may say they are free, their freedom is restricted by the laws of social contract of the territory they reside within. Therefore, our understanding of what freedom means is actually a socially constructed representation of what we think freedom should be. Freedom is relative. Is there such a thing as absolute freedom? According to Muslim belief, the universe began from a single point in time. In other words, it was created. Scientists refer to this creation of all matter as an explosion referred to as the Big Bang, which they assert is continuing to explode outward faster than the speed of light. That there is systematic order present in the midst of this explosion necessitates that a creator is designing everything within this creation or universe. Throughout history, God has sent messengers to teach them the purpose of this life, being that it is for a test to see who will worship Him, and He has promised paradise for those who obey. Those who attain paradise will do and have everything they want. However, the heart of all people in paradise is described as a united entity, whereby their desires will essentially all be the same. Therefore, in the context of paradise, given that everyone's desires will be in agreement, true freedom will be realized. Freedom is relative. However, we are living in a world where we don't all want the same thing and there must be give and take between the people. Therefore, we see that freedom in this life is limited, the extent of which is relative according to many aspects, some of which include family, culture, law, availability, and finance. Family. Restrictions of freedom according to family may include curfews, visitor restrictions, and volume levels. The parents, or property owners, have an understood right to impose rules according to what they see are appropriate for their ideal living conditions. Culture. Restrictions of culture are more sublime, wherein people conform to the ideals which are represented by the society in which they live. For example, dress standards and ceremonies are culturally influenced. Religion may also influence aspects of one's freedom. Law. Every country has a legal system which is imposed on all its citizens. These are further restrictions to an individual's freedom. However, they are necessary for maintaining social order and ensuring individual rights. Additionally, the law caters to individual safety, such as the protection gained by enforced seatbelt laws. Furthermore, it can be noted that for every right a person has, such as the privacy in one's home, there will be a coinciding law, like restricting uninvited guests from entering, etc. Many laws have a direct influence on the level of safety in the country. Availability. Freedom is further restricted by availability. For example, one's desire and freedom to shop late at night or attend a music concert is restricted by the availability of concerts in their region, or someone wanting the freedom to fly like a bird. However, without the availability of wings, their freedom is restricted. Finance. Additionally, individual freedom is restricted by a person's finance. One may say that they want the freedom to travel the world, and who doesn't? But if they can't afford to purchase the tickets, then their freedom is once again inhibited. Therefore, freedom is relative, and every person's level of freedom depends on their context within the society they live in. Free will. Free will is the freedom to do whatever one wishes within their ability in any given context. Everyone has free will. An example of someone exercising free will in a positive manner is like a man who chooses to buy a car for his personal means of transport, while an example of someone exercising free will in a negative manner is like a man who steals a car. Everyone has free will to comply with the rules in their given context, while they also have the free will not to comply. Those who do not comply generally face subsequent negative consequences. According to Islamic rulings, in the event a person is forced to do anything against their free will, they are not held responsible. Freedom in the West. As discussed, freedom in the West is relative and not absolute. There are some people who hate to conform to their contextual rules and they rebel. Sometimes this is a personal choice, and sometimes as a reaction to other events. For example, bikies are sometimes seen as rebels who are opposing the norms of society, and school shootings are extreme examples of frustrations vented at an unfair system. As mentioned, the degree of freedom affects the degree of public safety. So, for example, in Australia, a woman is considered free to travel alone or dress immodestly. However, these laws have a direct ratio relationship with the level of safety for women. According to one source, Australia is ranked in the top 10 countries around the world for having the highest rape statistics. So although women are deemed to have a higher degree of freedom in Australia, this freedom has had a direct impact on their safety. Freedom in Islam. Status of women in Islam. In Islam, women are seen as special. From the time of birth, girls are seen as a treasure to raise. Muslim women are highly respected and not to be looked at as sex objects or abused. And the mother in Islam is valued 3 times above the father. And both parents are to be afforded the highest respect in Islam after obedience to Allah, regardless of their religion. Women in Islam have the right to be spent upon and are not required to spend from their own wealth or earnings. So like a queen, she doesn't even need to work if she doesn't want to. It should be noted that there are no countries currently ruling 100% according to Islamic laws. Islamic laws are established for the protection and stability of society, and as women have a high status in Islam, their dignity and safety are protected through stricter rules. Just as a king would not want his precious daughter, his princess, from mixing and being harmed by peasant men, Muslim women too are seen as too precious just to let wander the streets. Therefore, women are encouraged to cover their femininity, avoid being alone with strange men, and should travel with a companion for protection from any harm. In Islam, there is no restriction placed on what work a woman can or cannot do with the exception of a few specific jobs. These include ruling the country and leading congregational prayers, unless there is no man present. However, all Muslims should avoid work associated with anything forbidden. In Islam, a woman can only be married to a man she is happy with, and in the event there are family disagreements in this regard, a judge can annul the guardianship rights of the father. She cannot be forced to marry against her will. Additionally, marriage laws protect the society from crimes of jealousy and sexually transmitted diseases which inflict approximately 80% of all sexually active people in Western societies. So while Islamic laws seem to offer less freedom, they in turn offer greater protection for the public from social harms. Freedom in Saudi. As with any society, the level of freedom of an individual is dependent on their context. As mentioned, this includes family, culture, and law, etc. Although previously religion had a big impact on an individual's freedom, traditional practices may be said to have taken over. The extent these new cultural norms impact on women depend mainly on family rules and values, more so than on religious or government laws. Current reforms are taking place in Saudi Arabia called Vision 2030, and the result of those reforms may take some time to take effect in the larger society. Some of the reforms include permission for women to drive and to travel alone. So while Saudi Arabian laws will not restrict women from driving, travelling, or seeking the education of their choice, their families may have an influence. In Saudi Arabia, there is a sponsor system which affects not only women, but also all foreign workers, and a sponsor can control even phone and banking access. Therefore, you will see a vast difference in the actual level of freedom afforded to women across Saudi Arabia. Some Saudi women you may see studying and working abroad. Saudi ladies have travelled to Canada, completed their education in medicine, and continue to work in Canada as outstanding doctors. Some Saudi women are learning to drive, shopping at leisure, and attending music concerts. I have personally never been stopped from entering a shopping centre for not having a male companion, and I am not aware of any centres which impose these restrictions. Many ladies have private drivers and go wherever they like. However, other Saudi women may have additional restrictions placed on them by their family as they may feel that further protection is required in some circumstances. And this is not to say that there are not some real cases of oppression and life-threatening situations. These occur even in the West, such as the case of Blanche Monnier from France, locked away for 25 years for trying to marry against her mother's wishes. For the most part, women are highly respected in Saudi Arabia, especially by those who adhere to the religion of Islam, the way it was taught by Prophet Muhammad, blessings and peace be upon him, who always ensured the women were happy, assisted them when needed, and was considerate of their feelings. Furthermore, some Saudi women have more opportunities than men. For example, as it is compulsory for men to provide all the household expenses, they are sometimes forced into the workforce before gaining tertiary qualifications. Currently in Saudi, there are more women in universities than men, with tens of thousands studying abroad. Current reforms are also seeing a steep rise in employment opportunities for Saudi women. Although women have been working as bank managers, university lecturers, and teachers for decades, Saudi women are now attaining employment in almost any field. Freedom is relative to the various contexts in our lives. Whether we are in Australia or Saudi Arabia, there are always laws inhibiting our freedom in some aspects, while at the same time other aspects of freedom may be available. For example, in Australia, women may have the freedom to enter more fields of study. However, they do not have the freedom not to work. In Saudi, women may have less opportunities with regard to the field of study. However, they have the freedom to choose if they want to work or not, and this can be a great relief if they have families to take care of. As the circumstances of women differ from men, freedom of equality is not the best answer. Rather, we should be focusing on people's needs and abilities, and a healthy society is built by establishing healthy homes, which offer love and stability to raise our future generations. Perhaps freedom, like a mirage, is a vanishing dream. We are all slaves in this world, either slaves to our teachers, bosses, desires, or ideals imposed on us by society, always trying to please someone. When will a woman be content with her level of freedom? Perhaps when she attains complete freedom to the point that it allows her to become completely enslaved, like those who have met crystal meth. And a free American woman's number one tip for staying safe in college and elsewhere: don't travel alone. Sometimes the rules and laws are there for our own protection, so the more advice and rules you follow, the safer you will be. May Allah guide us all and keep us all safe. Ameen.